A Manhattan socialite made a bet with her friends that even if she pretended to be broke, she could still find a man willing to give her everything. And so, at Columbia University, she chose me, the guy from the wrong side of the tracks. She hid her identity as an heiress and dated me. For 3 years, she lived a double life. With me, she was the poor girl who couldn't even afford a $10 bowl of ramen. But when I wasn't around, she'd casually drop thousands of dollars treating her friends to dinner. She watched me work 2 jobs, survive on $5 instant noodles, and haul 50-pound water jugs just to help her pay off her debts. It wasn't that she never considered telling me the truth and letting me live a life of ease. But every time she was about to speak, she lost her nerve. What if my love for her became tainted by her money? What if I started clinging to her like all the other guys? She kept putting it off day after day until tonight. I was making a delivery to a downtown bar when I saw her, Chloe, the woman who was supposedly working a shift at a diner. She stepped out of a gleaming sports car, laughing loudly with a group of girlfriends as they swept into the club. I was just passing by on my delivery scooter, my helmet hiding my face, when I caught snippets of their conversation. Chloe, how much longer are you going to play this game with your low-rent boyfriend? If he ever found out who you really are, his jaw would hit the floor. Well, what can you do? It's all because she's been obsessed with Julian forever. If Julian hadn't started dating that bargain bin girlfriend of his, Chloe never would have gotten into this mess, finding this Ethan guy just to spite him. Forcing herself to live in that dump and date someone so beneath her, I'd be depressed too. In the face of their near-constant mockery, Chloe just sat there on her velvet throne, sipping her cocktail with a lazy indifference, saying nothing. And in that moment, it hit me. The woman I thought was just like me, a simple girl from a humble background, was actually a Vanderbilt heiress. When I got back to my apartment, I pulled out my phone and made a call. Professor Davis, I'd like to apply for Project Nova. Professor Davis sounded shocked. Ethan, didn't you turn this down because of your girlfriend? What changed your mind? This is a top-secret project. Once you're in, it's 5 years of total isolation, no outside contact. You need to be absolutely sure about this. I had already made my decision before I even dialed. My voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. Hearing my resolve, Professor Davis relented. All right, if you're sure, come by the university sometime this week to sign the papers. The project kicks off in 2 weeks. They'll send a transport for you. From what I've seen, you and your girlfriend are very close. Make sure you talk this over with her. But I glanced down at the simple silver ring on my finger, a flicker of something complicated crossing my mind. There's no need. I've already decided to break up with her. The words had barely left my mouth when the old wooden door creaked open. Chloe stepped inside, wearing a pale pink dress. Who was that on the phone? I met her gaze for a second before quickly making an excuse to end the call. Just my roommate, talking about what we're doing after graduation. Chloe didn't press. She walked over, a smile playing on her lips, and pulled a watch from her purse, dangling it in front of me. I worked extra shifts all month to finally get this for you. Do you like it? I gave it a cursory glance, my voice flat. It's nice. My unexpectedly cold reaction clearly surprised her. Usually, no matter what she gave me, I'd take it immediately, pulling her into a hug, touched by the gesture but pained by the sacrifice she'd made. She studied my face. You don't like it? I shook my head. Ido. It's too much money. You shouldn't have. We need to be saving, remember? We agreed we'd get a place and get married as soon as we graduate. So that was it. He was just worried about her spending money again. Chloe let out a soft laugh and hugged me. Don't worry about it. I'll just pick up a few more shifts. My Ethan deserves to have everything other boyfriends have. I forced a tight smile, glanced at the clock on the wall, and headed to the bathroom to wash up. After I closed the door, I stood in front of the mirror and saw Chloe's phone buzz on the counter. I picked it up, the screen unlocked, and a message from a familiar profile picture popped up. Chloe, thanks for the new Patek Philippe. I love it. The photo was dimly lit, but there was no hiding the brilliant sparkle of real diamonds. I thought of the cheap, $9.99 watch she'd tossed on my table, and a bitter, silent laugh escaped me. The next morning, Chloe was woken by the sound of rustling and clattering. She opened her eyes to see me tossing things into the trash. Mugs, shirts, keychains, phone cases, every matching couple's item she had so carefully picked out for us. Why was I throwing away all these little things I used to cherish? The question jolted her fully awake. She sat up slowly. None of that's broken. Why are you throwing it out? They're just old. I'll get new stuff later, I mumbled, grabbing the box and heading for the door. As I was heading out, my landlord called. Ethan, what's this about moving out? Did you and your girlfriend have a fight? That girl works from dawn till dusk for you. When your favorite restaurant closed, she went and learned their recipes just so you could still have your favorite dish. She once ran 10 miles in the dead of winter just to get you roasted chestnuts. Don't be a fool and let a girl like that go. Listening to my landlord's heartfelt plea, a bitter smile twisted my lips. Before I knew the truth, I never once doubted Chloe's feelings for me. Her kindness was real, tangible, and that's exactly why this hurts so much. Because I truly believed it, I can't accept that it was all a lie for 3 years. After all, I gave her a heart more genuine and pure than anything she ever offered, only to be labeled as her cheap little project. I shook my head, the bitter taste of it all in my mouth. It's over between us, ma'am. Please just process the paperwork. When I got back to the apartment, Chloe was changing. I just shut the door when my phone rang again. A few seconds later, Julian's deep voice was echoing through the tiny room from my speakerphone. Ethan, are you busy? Can you come hang out? I just had a huge fight with Jessica. Hearing that familiar voice, Chloe, who was standing nearby, froze mid-button. She leaned in closer, and I saw her reflection in the mirror, her face a mask of tension and worry. I started to say, give me a little while, I have to work until, but Chloe cut me off. What are you waiting for? Go now. Julian must be a wreck after a big fight. I'll give you a ride. I looked at her steadily and asked a question that clearly caught her off guard. Don't you have your shift at the coffee shop this morning? She was stumped for a moment, then quickly came up with an excuse about the shop being closed today. Before I could argue, she was pulling me out the door and onto her electric scooter. She drove fast, as if she couldn't get there soon enough. I noticed she'd buttoned her shirt wrong in her haste, and I remembered how she'd rushed me out the door the last time Julian and Jessica had a fight and he needed me for support. I wasn't without my suspicions back then. I had even tested her on it. She had just looked at me with those clear, bright eyes and a helpless smile. What are you imagining? It's only because Julian is your best friend. I care about him because he's important to you, and I don't want his drama to upset you. If he weren't your friend, I probably wouldn't even know who he is. Her words had completely reassured me, and I never doubted her again. Looking back now, I feel like a complete fool. The lights were off in Julian's small apartment. The place was a wreck, the aftermath of a huge fight. Julian was sitting on the floor, hugging his knees, surrounded by empty beer bottles. The pain on Chloe's face was impossible to hide. She rushed forward to help him up, kneeling to put his slippers back on his feet. What happened? She asked softly. They had, after all, known each other since they were kids. She knew him better than anyone. Julian finally looked up at her. I stood in the doorway, silently watching the scene unfold. Once Julian had calmed down a bit, I finally asked, what was it about this time? At the mention of it, Julian's anger flared up again. All I did was go on a camping trip and buy a new watch, and she completely lost it on me. I saw the luxury brand logos on the shopping bags scattered on the floor, and the words of advice died in my throat. I used to think Julian was like me, from a normal family, just a little reckless with money. That's why I always cut him so much slack. Now I see it was just another rich kid's tantrum. I had no energy to waste on this petty drama, so I just stood back and watched as Chloe pulled out all the stops to cheer up her childhood friend. After she worked her magic, Julian changed his clothes and agreed to go out with us to clear his head. Our destination was the city's largest amusement park. The place, usually packed with people, was eerily empty. I wasn't surprised. I'd overheard Chloe on the phone earlier, arranging to have the entire park shut down for the day. I just walked silently behind them. All day, Chloe never once glanced back at me. I was a ghost, an invisible extra trailing behind the main characters of the story. As night fell, the quiet park came alive with a fireworks display. Brilliant colors exploded across the sky, like a meteor shower lighting up the darkness. All of Julian's gloom vanished. His eyes lit up, his voice filled with unconcealed delight. I thought they only did fireworks on holidays. Why are they having a show tonight? Chloe watched him with a fond, knowing smile. I knew this was her doing. While we were getting ice cream earlier, she'd been texting nonstop, no doubt arranging this very display. But Julian didn't stay to see the end of the surprise she'd arranged just for him. Halfway through, he got a call from Jessica. I don't know what she said, but his face lit up, and despite Chloe's pleading, he left. After his silhouette vanished into the distance, Chloe, who had been on a high all day, deflated like a spent firework. Furious that her day's efforts had been so easily undone, she violently kicked over a box of unlit fireworks. When she turned back, her eyes, filled with frustration and anger, met my calm gaze. In that instant, it was as if she remembered I was there. She quickly masked her emotions and hurried over to take my hand. Ethan, wasn't that beautiful? I looked up at the letters J, still faintly visible in the smoke, murmured a soft yeah, and gently pushed her hand away. Chloe froze, thinking I had figured something out. She started to stammer an explanation. Today, I didn't give her the chance. nor did I want to hear her excuses. I feigned indifference. They say wishing on fireworks is like wishing on a star. Can make your dreams come true. We should make one. She seized the lifeline I'd thrown her, likely to cover for how she doted on Julian all day. This time, she said her wish aloud. I wish that my Ethan and I can be together forever, and that we can save up enough to get married right after graduation. I'd heard her say those words so many times, and they always brought tears to my eyes. But now, hearing them again, I felt nothing. I just closed my eyes and made my own wish. I hope that after I leave Chloe, our paths will never cross again. When I opened my eyes, Chloe was looking at me with a smile. What did you wish for, Ethan? Why won't you tell me? I looked away and smiled faintly. If you say it out loud, it won't come true. After signing the agreement at the university, I went to my part-time job and put in my notice. The manager agreed, asking me to work one last shift today. I spent the morning making dozens of deliveries, the sweltering sun making my head spin. My first delivery of the afternoon was to a mansion in an affluent neighborhood. I set down my hot helmet, hoisted the heavy bags of food, and knocked on the massive door. A few minutes later, the door opened, and a familiar voice greeted me. I looked up and found myself staring into a pair of very familiar eyes. The moment she saw me, her eyes widened, a cascade of emotions, shock, panic, nervousness, flashing across her face. It was Chloe. What are you doing here? Faced with a completely flustered Chloe, I remained calm and asked the question first. This was her chance, the perfect moment to come clean. But the words that tumbled out of her mouth were just another lie. It's a friend's birthday. They invited me to the party. I took a step back, gesturing to the palace-like mansion behind her. You have friends this rich? Afraid of slipping up, Chloe quickly changed the subject. Why are you delivering food? It's so hot out. This must be exhausting work. I glanced at my sunburnt arms, my voice devoid of emotion. Your birthday is next month. You mentioned wanting a new phone. I was just trying to save up for a surprise. That had been the plan, of course. But now I knew just how stupid I'd been, letting her lead me on like that. For some reason, my words made her heart clench. She noticed the bruises on my sunburnt hands, and a strange look crossed her face. This pampered heiress had never met a boy willing to deliver food in the scorching heat just to buy her a gift. A sudden tightness gripped her chest, but before she could speak, a few of her friends, curious about the delay, came out to the porch. Chloe, what's taking so long? When they saw me, they exchanged glances and quickly started playing along. Their tone with Chloe shifted from deferential to chummy. Hey, it's Zach's birthday, he's waiting for us. What's with the hold-up? This your boyfriend? Come on, bring him in for a drink. With that, they laughingly pulled both of us inside. The moment I stepped inside, I scanned the room and saw so many familiar things. The display case of collectibles, the teddy bear on the couch, the crystal hourglass on the shelf. I'd seen all of them on Julian's Facebook page. I always wondered how someone from a family like his could afford such expensive gifts. Now I knew, they were all from Chloe, and they were all matching sets. I took it all in, my eyes finally landing on a small dog. A fluffy white poodle came bouncing out, wearing a little blue dress. It wasn't the dog's cute outfit that caught my attention, but the silk scarf tied in a bow around its neck. It was a Louis Vuitton scarf, with a small, embroidered C at the end that stood out painfully. That scarf was our 2-year anniversary present. I'd bought it for her after working for 6 months straight, sleeping only 3 hours a night. I wanted to give her the best, so I took all my savings and walked into a luxury boutique for the first time in my life. And she hadn't just disliked it, she'd casually tied my blood, sweat, and tears around a dog's neck. My fingernails dug into my palms, and I felt the air catch in my throat. Chloe had been watching me like a hawk since I walked in, terrified I'd put the pieces together. Just then, a group of her drunk friends started shouting about playing a game, and she quickly pulled me into the circle, desperate for a distraction. We had just sat down when her phone rang. She glanced at it, ready to decline the call, but after seeing the name on the screen, she hesitated for a second before stepping out onto the balcony. As the door closed behind her, the game started. All right, everyone, let's play Never Have I Ever, Rich Kid Edition. I tried to refuse, but they all pushed me back down into my seat. I have a villa in the Hamptons. If you don't, take a drink. I just bought the new Maserati. Take a drink if you haven't. The most expensive piece from this year's Sotheby's auction is sitting in my living room. Drink up. I had none of the things these trust fund kids were talking about. This wasn't my world. We were only halfway through the first round, and I was already out. Seeing this, the group, their intentions clear, got visibly excited. Looks like we have our first loser. Time for your punishment. You have to get on all fours and race the dog to the door. And if you lose to the dog, there's another punishment waiting for you. I snapped my head up, staring at them in disbelief. I got to my feet, refusing to accept such a degrading forfeit. When they saw I wouldn't do it, their playful expressions curdled into sneers. Can't handle the stakes? Don't tell me you're actually afraid of losing to a dog. How pathetic. Hey, we all agreed to the rules. You don't just get to back out now. Seeing the relentless look in their eyes, I finally understood. This was all deliberate. They probably thought Chloe had debased herself by being with someone like me for 3 years, and this was their way of getting revenge on her behalf. Realizing their malicious intent, I tried to leave, but someone grabbed my arm and yanked me off balance. I stumbled and fell hard, my head cracking against the corner of the coffee table. Blood started to gush from the wound. The sight of blood didn't sober them up, it only made them more excited. They brought the dog over and set it down next to me, hooting and cheering. Here we go, everyone. The man versus dog race is about to begin. On your marks. His words were cut short by a furious voice from the doorway. What the hell are you doing? The room fell silent. Everyone looked away, suddenly pretending they had nothing to do with it. It was Chloe. We were just playing a game, Chloe. No big deal, one of them said, trying to smooth things over. But Chloe didn't even look at them. She pushed her way through the crowd, pulled me to my feet, and stormed out of the mansion, dragging me behind her. Chloe hailed a cab and gave the driver the address for the nearest hospital. On the way, she dabbed at the cut on my forehead with her handkerchief, her face a picture of concern, apologizing over and over. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never should have left you alone in there. I didn't know if she was involved in what had just happened, whether it was a sick prank or just an accident. But either way, this was on her. I wasn't ready to accept her apology. I pushed down the stinging pain in my heart and asked coldly, You just offended all your rich friends for me. Aren't you worried they'll hold a grudge? Seeing the tears welling in my eyes, Chloe seemed to think I was worried about her. A wave of guilt washed over her face. She shook her head, her voice soft and low. I don't care about them. You're what's important to me. If I didn't know the truth, I might have fallen for it. But I did know. I knew her expression, her words, her supposed love for me. It was all a lie. I took a deep breath, about to say something else, but her phone buzzed with a series of messages. She glanced at the screen and immediately started lying again. Ethan, my professor needs me on campus for something urgent. Can you get to the hospital on your own? I stared at her for a long moment before giving a small, self-deprecating nod. The cab pulled over. As I watched her disappear into the crowd, the text messages I'd glimpsed on her screen flashed in my mind. Chloe, I think I'm going to break up with Jessica. Where are you? I'm on my way. After getting stitched up at the ER, I looked at my shattered phone and went straight to the Apple Store. Normally, I'd just replace the screen and make it last. But I was done being frugal. I bought the latest iPhone, spending over $1,000, a significant chunk of the money I'd been saving for a down payment on a house. Back at my place, I set up the new phone and logged into my accounts. I saw a new post on Facebook and clicked on it. It was a live photo from Chloe. My old Android never played the audio on those, but with the iPhone, the moment I pressed the screen, I heard the background noise. Chloe, it's just a confession. Did you have to go this big? I froze. Julian had just said he was breaking up with his girlfriend, and here was Chloe, already planning her grand confession to him. I looked at the calendar on my wall, at the date I had circled in red. 7 days left until my departure. For the next few days, Chloe didn't come back to the apartment, using her job as an excuse. I knew she was busy with her confession plans. I, in turn, was busy packing my life into a single suitcase. I never let on that I knew. Then, late one night, she came back. She was completely drunk, barely coherent. The moment she stumbled through the door, she threw her arms around me, murmuring nonsense, her eyes red-rimmed. The roses were your favorite kind. The ring was custom-made. All our friends were there, cheering for us, but none of it mattered more than a single I'm sorry from her. Did it? Why can't you ever see me? I'm the one who's been by your side for more than a decade. What is it about her that you can't let go of? Her voice grew thick with emotion, and she started to sob. I watched her, completely dejected and heartbroken, and felt nothing. I knew she had the wrong person. In her drunken state, she thought I was Julian. From her slurred words, I pieced it together. She had confessed, and he had rejected her. Again, I listened in silence. I didn't help her to bed. I just turned off the light and went to sleep. Chloe woke up the next morning, shivering. The AC had been blasting all night, and she'd fallen asleep on the couch in her clothes without a blanket. Her head was pounding, her stomach was churning, and she felt miserable. She stumbled into the kitchen, but there was nothing on the stove. Usually, after a night of her drinking, I'd have a hangover remedy waiting for her. Why not today? She walked into the bedroom to ask me about it and saw me folding clothes in front of the open closet. On the floor was a large, nearly full suitcase. A sudden, overwhelming wave of panic washed over her, stronger than anything she'd expected. "What are you doing with that suitcase? Are you going somewhere?" I didn't stop folding, didn't even look at her. "Just getting my winter clothes out. It's getting cold." Before she could ask anything else, I turned and shut myself in the bathroom. Over the next few days, Julian's Facebook was flooded with photos and videos of him and Jessica, all loved up. Chloe lost all interest in my strange behavior. She just stayed home, listless, either staring into space or sleeping. I watched her silently and continued with my preparations. 3 days before my departure, I went home to tell my parents about the classified research project. 2 days before, I met up with my friends to say my goodbyes. On my last day, Julian called and invited Chloe and me to go out on the lake with him. I didn't want to go, but the call seemed to snap Chloe out of her funk, and she insisted. When we got to the lake and saw Jessica standing next to Julian, Chloe's expression instantly frosted over. Once we were on the boat, I found a spot to sit and just took in the misty view of the lake. Chloe sat beside me, but her eyes were fixed on Julian. As we reached the center of the lake, the sky opened up. A torrential downpour began, and fierce winds rocked the small boat violently. Thunder cracked, and a thick fog rolled in. A moment later, a powerful gust flipped the boat, throwing all of us who weren't wearing life vests into the churning water. Neither Julian nor I could swim. We both clung desperately to the edge of the overturned boat, fighting to stay afloat. Jessica, on the other hand, immediately started swimming for shore, not looking back once. But Chloe only had eyes for Julian. She abandoned me, right there beside her, and without a moment's hesitation, swam around the boat to grab Julian, who was starting to go under. The icy water sapped my strength, my teeth chattering uncontrollably, my face drained of all color. I watched as she pulled him away, their figures slowly disappearing into the thick fog. My consciousness began to fade. The waves kept crashing over me. I couldn't hold on any longer. My grip on my only lifeline slipped. I let go and sank into the dark water. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. A nurse saw my eyes open and hurried over to check my vitals. "You're awake. The park rangers who brought you in have left. You should call your family to come get you and handle the discharge paperwork." So it was the park rangers who saved me. I glanced around the empty hospital room, then checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. "Chloe, I'm serious this time. I'm done with Jessica. She knew I couldn't swim, and she just left me there to drown. She's not worth it. If you hadn't saved me, I would have died in that lake. I know you've had feelings for me for years. I know you transferred to Colombia just for me, and I know you were never really happy with Ethan. I was an idiot before. I couldn't see what was right in front of me, but I see it now. Will you be with me?" Faced with this heartfelt, tearful confession she had been waiting years for, Chloe showed no excitement. She didn't immediately say yes. She just stood there, silent, as if in a trance. I watched them through the window in the door, a little surprised by her reaction, but I didn't dwell on it. It was probably just the shock of it all. They were going to end up together one way or another. I had no patience to stick around for the inevitable happy ending. I turned and walked away. After I finished the discharge paperwork, I got a text from my landlord reminding me that today was my official move-out day. I checked the time, 1 p.m., still time. I hailed a cab and went back to the apartment. The only thing of mine left in the room was my suitcase. That, and a box I'd packed earlier, filled with every gift Chloe had given me over the last 3 years. I took out a pad of sticky notes and, using prices I'd looked up online, tagged every single item. The box was full, and it all looked nice enough, but the total value came to less than $50. I guess in her eyes, a cheap guy only deserved cheap gifts. I let out a humorless laugh, placed the breakup letter I'd already written on top, closed the box, and took it to be mailed. The destination address was Chloe Vanderbilt's mansion. After that was done, I went back to the apartment one last time. I transferred an extra month's rent to my landlord and asked her to clear out anything of Chloe's that was left. She was with Julian now. She wouldn't be back. Just as I hit send, a dozen iMessages from Chloe flooded my screen. I didn't open a single one. I just blocked her number, then went through every app and deleted and blocked her there, too. At that exact moment, Professor Davis called. "Ethan, it's time to go. The transport is downstairs. Come on down." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out of that shabby little apartment I had once called home, knowing I would never come back. I never replied. Chloe remembered the park rangers calling her on the way to the hospital to say they'd brought me in. Assuming I was fine, she hadn't rushed to check on me. But as the hours ticked by and evening approached, she grew anxious. While Julian was asleep, she finally went to find a nurse. The nurse checked the records and told her I had been discharged as soon as I woke up. Relieved that I was okay, Chloe tried calling me. The phone just rang and rang. A knot of anxiety began to form in her stomach. As her frustration grew, her butler called to say a local package had arrived and asked if he should accept it. Package? Chloe couldn't recall ordering anything. She dismissed it as unimportant and quickly hung up. She was about to text me again when Julian woke up, complaining that he was hungry. She had to put her worries aside for the moment and take him out to eat. They went to a nice restaurant downtown. Throughout the meal, Chloe was distracted, constantly checking her phone. Julian quickly noticed her behavior and asked what was wrong. "What's up? Something important going on?" His question startled her, and she quickly shook her head. She didn't want him to know she was panicking because she couldn't get in touch with me. After his near-death experience that morning, Julian had finally seen Jessica for who she was and had broken up with her. He had then offered Chloe everything she'd ever wanted. But now it was Chloe who was hesitating. She had always imagined that the moment Julian finally chose her, she would be ecstatic, crying with joy. But now that it was actually happening, her mind was a chaotic mess. Her first emotion wasn't joy, but a deep-seated worry. She was worried that if she said yes to Julian, it would mean I would find out the truth. She couldn't bear to imagine how I would feel when I learned the truth. After all, for the past 3 years, I had given everything I had, working single-mindedly for the future we were supposed to build together. So, she didn't say yes to Julian. She told him she needed time to think. Julian knew I was the obstacle between them, so he didn't push. He just told her to take a week to sort things out. After dinner, Chloe drove him home. He chattered away the whole time, just like he always did, but she didn't hear a word. Her mind was stuck replaying the day's events, consumed with the thought that I must be furious with her. When she didn't respond, the silence became awkward, and Julian got annoyed. He playfully tugged her ear. "What are you daydreaming about? Are all women like this? The chase is over, so you lose interest? We're not even officially together, and you're already ignoring me." His whining tone sounded strange to Chloe. In all the years she had known him, he had rarely shown such vulnerability. He was always the one being pursued, always holding the power in their dynamic. He would accept or reject her advances based on his mood, never revealing his own emotions. She was used to his arrogant, picky demeanor. She was used to planning elaborate surprises only to be pushed away. She found she couldn't even picture herself as his actual girlfriend. She felt less like a suitor and more like an older sister, constantly indulging his whims. And her years of relentless pursuit, had it all just been a game to them, one they never tired of playing? The thought sent a chill down her spine. She couldn't help but glance over at Julian. It had been 14 years since they first met. He wasn't that carefree little boy in a tuxedo anymore. He'd had girlfriends, messy breakups. He'd learned how to play the game, how to manipulate women's emotions. And she was the one he had perfected his technique on. The realization hit her hard, and she finally asked him the question that was burning in her mind. "Julian, this isn't your first relationship, and it's not your first breakup, but it's the first time you've ever said you wanted to be with me. I need to know why. What changed? What finally made you see me?" Julian was taken aback by the question and genuinely seemed confused. To be honest, he didn't know how to answer. In his world, relationships were just a way to spice up an otherwise boring life. He was born into immense wealth, had tasted every delicacy and seen every sight the world had to offer before he was even a teenager. For more than 20 years, his life had been a monotonous cycle of parties, travel, and leisure. He was utterly bored. He dated a couple of socialites before he was 19, but it was always the same predictable routine. Then he met Jessica. For her, a girl from an ordinary background, he'd fought with his family, run away from home, and gotten cut off financially. Living like a normal person, he finally experienced something new. It wasn't the poverty that intrigued him, it was the people. The complex, messy, beautiful, and ugly side of human nature. The scheming, the backstabbing, the raw ambition. He saw it all for the first time through Jessica. And being naturally clever, he started to emulate what he saw, learning to play with people's emotions. Take me, for example, a kind-hearted, regular guy who thought we were in the same boat. I felt sorry for him, so I was always there for him. And every time he saw that look of pity on my face, he found it amusing, because he knew we weren't the same at all. His family was incredibly wealthy. He could go back to his life of luxury anytime he wanted, just by apologizing. He wasn't like me, working himself to the bone just to afford a small apartment. Even when he was slumming it, he had a line of admirers. All he had to do was hint at wanting something and it would appear. He wasn't like me, grateful for the smallest kindness. He never had to invest anything emotionally. To him, love was a performance. He was the leading man, playing a role, and when the curtain fell, he would simply step off the stage and go back to his real life. He wasn't like me, pouring my entire soul into a relationship built on lies. So, in our friendship, I was never anything more than a supporting character in the drama he was directing. And now, his little play, Rich Boy Falls for Poor Girl, had reached its climax. The hero has seen the error of his ways and is finally getting together with the devoted girl who's loved him all along. He dumps Jessica and chooses Chloe. It was a perfect, cliché ending. So Julian was silent for a long time, unable to come up with a real answer. Finally, he just fed her a line. Because I only realized today that after all these years, you've left an indelible mark on my heart. I've fallen in love with you without even knowing it. He put on his best actor's face, trying to convey a perfect blend of regret and deep affection. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. Chloe was so in love with him, she'd be too overjoyed that he'd finally chosen her to question his sincerity. He was pleased with his performance, convinced he'd delivered the perfect line. He turned to see her reaction, expecting shock and elation. But she wasn't looking at him. Her head was bowed, her expression one of deep disappointment, but with a new clarity in her eyes, as if a fog had finally lifted. After dropping Julian off, Chloe drove back to my apartment but didn't go inside. She stood under the tall sycamore tree on the street, staring up at my dark window. She wondered what I was doing. Was I asleep? Was I lying in the dark, staring at my phone? Or was I tossing and turning, unable to sleep, thinking about how she'd left me to drown? I must be angry with her. Otherwise, I would have answered her calls and texts. But that wasn't her main concern. She knew I was easy to win over. What truly worried her was the tangled mess of her, me, and Julian. She didn't know how to face me, or whether this was the moment to finally tell me the truth. Running away was cowardly. After 2 hours of standing on the sidewalk, she finally accepted that. She had to go upstairs and face me, but she knew I was angry, and showing up empty-handed wasn't a good idea. So she drove back to her mansion to get the expensive watch she'd recently bought at an auction. On her way out, she noticed a box sitting in the entryway. The handwriting on the label was familiar, but she couldn't place it. It was almost midnight. She didn't have time to worry about it now. She'd open it when she got back. After stopping to buy a bag full of my favorite late-night snacks, she tiptoed up to the apartment door. She put her key in the lock and turned. Nothing. She tried again. The door wouldn't open. The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered, and in the dim light, she used her phone's flashlight to see that the lock had been changed. Was I really that angry? Her heart sank. She knocked softly on the door, her voice gentle. "Ethan, it's me. Are you asleep? Please open the door. It's so hot out here." This was her usual routine for when she'd stayed out too late and lost her key. But tonight, her soft-spoken pleas were met with silence. She called my name a dozen times, but no one came to the door. Desperate, she knocked on the landlord's door. The landlord's son, half asleep, answered. When she explained the situation, he groggily found her the new key, turned in the new lock with a smooth click. The apartment was pitch black and silent. I must have been sound asleep. Not wanting to wake me, she didn't turn on the lights, tiptoeing inside. She left the food on the kitchen table, then crept into the bedroom and placed the expensive watch on my nightstand, right where I would see it first thing in the morning. Then, she went to the closet to get her pajamas. She reached inside, but her hand met empty air. The closet was completely empty. Where were her clothes? Her brow furrowed in confusion. She quickly turned on her phone's screen for light. The weak light illuminated a completely bare closet. She instinctively turned to ask me what was going on, but then she saw the bed. It was just a bare mattress. No seats, no blankets. And no me. It was then that she finally understood something was terribly wrong. She flipped on the main light, and the sight that greeted her made her freeze. The closet, the bed, the desk, everything was empty. All the little things that had made this tiny apartment a home were gone. The only thing left was the ridiculously expensive watch on the nightstand, glittering under the bare bulb, looking completely and utterly out of place. "Ethan moved out this afternoon," the landlord explained, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "He even paid me extra to clear out anything that was left. The old lock was busted, so I put a new one on. You didn't know?" His words hit Chloe like a physical blow, her mind reeling. She stared at the landlord, who was now rambling on about how inconsiderate she'd been, and felt a crushing weight on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why did he leave? Did he say anything? Did he say where he was going? The landlord was shocked that she knew even less than he did. "He left because you made him angry, obviously." "What did he say?" "He said to get rid of everything in the apartment." "Where did he go?" "How should I know? That's his private business. Shouldn't you, his girlfriend, be the one who knows that?" His words sent her spiraling. She finally realized that something huge must have happened, something she knew nothing about, for me to just disappear like this. All composure gone, She fumbled for her phone to call me as she turned to leave. Seeing her frantic state, the landlord called after her. "Hey, I need that key back. The apartment's not yours anymore. I have to rent it out." "Don't find a new tenant," Chloe called back. "I'll take it. I'll renew the lease for a year. I'll transfer you the money now." With that, she ran out to the street and hailed a cab. She went to the university first, but the dorms were locked for the night. She called my roommate, waking him up, only to be told that I wasn't there. She gave the driver another address. All night, she went to every place she could think of where I might be, but there was no sign of me anywhere. As the sun came up, she went to the last place she could think of, Lookout Point. A year ago, on this very spot, we had tied a wishing ribbon to a tree, writing our promise to get married and buy a house right after graduation. But this time, she found nothing. She hadn't slept in 24 hours, and she was utterly exhausted. She looked up at the colorful ribbons fluttering in the morning breeze, took a photo, and sent it to me. The photo didn't go through. A red exclamation mark appeared next to the message. I had blocked her. I had blocked and deleted her. The realization cut through her exhausted haze, snapping her to attention. She stared at her phone in disbelief, her fingers flying as she checked every app. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, even Venmo. I had blocked her everywhere. And every post, every photo that had documented our life together, was gone. The finality of it shattered what little composure she had left. The events of the past few days replayed in her mind on a loop. She racked her brain, trying to pinpoint the exact reason I had left. Was it because she hadn't saved me at the lake? Was it because she'd been so distant and depressed lately? Had she forgotten an important date? As she went over every memory, a pattern began to emerge from all the moments of neglect she had previously ignored. She finally started to see it. The clues that pointed to why I had left. Her perfect girlfriend persona, the one she thought was flawless, was actually full of holes. She was thoughtful and caring when it came to the little things, but whenever Julian was involved, she would drop me without a second thought. She had always assumed I was oblivious, and that assumption had made her careless. But looking back now, was it possible I had known all along? She couldn't bear to think about it anymore. She tilted her head back, gasping for air, trying to relieve the crushing tightness in her chest. A snap from above. A red ribbon detached from a branch and fluttered down, landing on her face. Numb, she slowly lifted it up towards the rising sun. Work hard, save money, buy a house right after graduation, and get married. At the bottom of the hopeful wish were our names, Chloe and Ethan. It was my handwriting. She knew it instantly. It was the same handwriting that had been on the package in her entryway. The realization hit her, and she shot to her feet, sprinting away from Lookout Point. The red ribbon, caught by the wind, drifted away into the trees, lost forever. Felt like an omen, or a punishment. On the drive back, she had a sinking feeling she knew what was happening, but a part of her was still in denial, refusing to accept it. But when she got home and finally opened that package, the last flicker of hope in her heart was extinguished, leaving only cold ash. Every cheap trinket and piece of costume jewelry she'd had her housekeeper buy for me over the last 3 years was in that box, each one meticulously labeled with its price. It was the first time she had ever known what any of it actually cost. $50. For me, that was 2 weeks of groceries saved by skipping meals. For her, it was less than the price of a corkscrew at one of the bars she frequented. It was the same price as the comfortable, practical shoes I had bought for her, the ones she was wearing right now. She wasn't used to shoes like that. She tried to talk me out of buying them for her at the mall 2 months ago, but I had insisted. "We're graduating soon, you'll need a good pair of shoes for work." She'd been wearing them for 2 months and had gotten used to them, just like she'd gotten used to the simple clothes I bought her, the cheap shampoo. None of it was up to her standards, but over time, she'd stopped complaining. She'd started eating at food trucks with me, brainstorming ways to save money, even getting upset about a dripping faucet. To the rest of the world, she was still the Manhattan socialite who spent money without a thought. But with me, she had experienced a different kind of life. Not a fantasy world built of gold and silver, but the small, tangible moments of a real, simple life. The shabby little apartment she had once despised had, without her even realizing it, become more of a home to her than her mansion. On nights when she was drunk, she'd give the cab driver my address instead of her own. When Julian rejected her, her first instinct was to come back to my apartment for comfort. On holidays when her family was away, she would make dinner and wait for me to come home. In those quiet, unassuming moments, she had been genuinely touched by something real and sincere. But for her, sincerity was always fleeting. My letter was short. "It must have been hard, spending 3 years acting in this little play of yours. Well, it's over now. Here are your gifts back. Goodbye, Chloe. Forever." I hadn't mentioned the lies, the deceit, the calculation. But to her, Every word was a gut-wrenching accusation. She couldn't describe the feeling. She was a ship lost at sea in a hurricane, the sails of her heart being ripped to shreds by waves of guilt and regret. The wind howled, dredging up long-buried memories that crashed against her, driving her further into the abyss. She was drowning in this storm of her own making, on the verge of being completely destroyed. Tears of shame and sorrow fell onto the letter, the only distress signal she could send, but there was no one left to answer her call. When her butler showed Julian and a group of their friends in, they found Chloe collapsed in the entryway. Her face was ashen, her eyes so bloodshot they looked raw. Her fingers were clenched around the leg of a console table, her knuckles white, her palm bleeding from where a sharp edge had cut her. They had all grown up with her, but they had never seen her like this. They stood frozen, afraid to approach. Only Julian dared. He crouched down in front of her, waving a hand in front of her face. "Chloe?" he asked tentatively. "What's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." At the sound of his voice, she slowly lifted her head. Her vacant eyes struggled to focus, as if she was trying to remember who he was. When she didn't answer, Julian frowned and his gaze fell on the open box on the floor. He could see at a glance that it was filled with worthless junk. He wouldn't even take it if it were free. Why on earth would Chloe have a box full of this garbage? Was this some weird new hobby? He picked up one of the items and saw the sticky note on it, $9.99. He snorted with laughter. "This is a pretty good fake. Only $10, though? That probably wouldn't even cover shipping." Hearing him, the others felt emboldened and crowded around, intrigued by the strange collection. "Chloe, where did you dig up all this junk? You're not planning on giving it to, you know who, are you?" "I bet she is. A cheap guy like him has probably never seen anything nice. He'd love this stuff. You're giving him all of it at once? You'll lose the emotional impact. You should space it out." The cacophony of their voices pulled Chloe back to reality. She looked at their mocking faces, their dismissive glances, and every word felt like a poisoned dart. She swallowed the lump in her throat and spoke, her voice ice cold. "Put it all down, now." The entryway fell silent. They could all hear the fury simmering beneath her calm tone and quickly put the items back in the box. All except Julian. He continued to fiddle with the cheap watch he was holding until, with a careless tug, the band snapped and the face clattered to the marble floor. Chloe's eyes blazed with a rage they had never seen before. She pointed to the door. "Get out." The others knew this wasn't the time to hang around and started to back away. But Julian was unfazed. "It's just a piece of junk, Chloe. If you keep this up, you're going to make me angry." She didn't react to his threat. She just lowered her head and carefully picked up the broken watch face with her bleeding hands. Seeing her cradling the broken piece of plastic, Julian's spoiled brat temper flared. He snatched it from her hand, strode over to the wastebasket, and threw it in. "That'll teach you to ignore me." Chloe used the wall to pull herself to her feet. When she saw what he'd done, her face contorted with rage. "Pick up." Julian froze, stunned by her furious command. It was the first time Chloe had ever raised her voice to him, over a broken piece of junk. His own face darkened with anger, and he kicked the wastebasket over, sending trash spilling across the floor. That's where worthless junk belongs. All the pain and rage Chloe had been suppressing all night finally erupted. She called for her butler and ordered him to escort everyone out. But Julian stubbornly stood his ground, staring her down. "Is this how you're going to be, Chloe? If you kick me out of this house today, I swear, you could get on your knees and beg, and I will never give you another chance." Chloe didn't react, but their friends behind them panicked and rushed forward to intervene. "Hey, Chloe was just joking, Julian. Don't take it so seriously. You know how much she likes you. She'd never yell at you. She was mad at us. We're leaving now. You guys stop fighting. Chloe, just apologize. Julian isn't Ethan, you can't treat him like this. You have to be nice to him, or you'll regret it when he gets really mad." Julian's expression began to soften. He composed himself and looked at Chloe, expecting her to back down. But all he saw were her dark, cold eyes. "Everyone, out." Her words reignited his fury. He couldn't believe that the girl who had spent her life smiling up at him would humiliate him like this in front of their friends. He grabbed a glass from the coffee table and hurled it to the floor. "What is your problem? You're the one who's been begging me to be with you for years. You think I'd be here otherwise? I have girls lining up for me. Chloe, I don't need you." Faced with his arrogant tirade, Chloe felt no desire to placate him. She clenched her fists, her voice like ice. "Then go find them." The color drained from Julian's furious face. He stared at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Chloe, have you lost your mind from spending too much time with that loser? It's a broken piece of plastic. Why are you treating it like it's a diamond? Don't tell me you were going to give it to him." "Of course. A broke loser and a piece of trash from the flea market. Perfect match. Go on, get out of here and be with him. The sight of you makes me sick. Chloe had seen how good I had been to Julian over the years. When his arrogance got him into trouble with our classmates, I was the one who smoothed things over. When he and Jessica fought in the middle of the night, I would go to him even if I was sick with a fever. I was always the one looking out for him, carrying his things, making sure he was okay. She had always thought there was a real friendship between us. Only now did she realize that in Julian's mind, I had never been his friend, and really it made sense. He treated everyone's feelings with the same casual disregard. She had chased him for 14 years, and he had accepted her devotion without ever giving anything in return. Why would he value my friendship any differently? The whole ugly scene ended with Julian storming out. Their friends urged Chloe to go after him, but she didn't move. They couldn't understand her behavior and grew frantic. Chloe, what are you thinking? You've been chasing him for years, and he finally came around. If you let him go now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Chloe's face remained blank. She clearly had no intention of discussing it. Her friends exchanged confused glances, a new understanding dawning on them. One of them spoke tentatively. Are you really not going after him? You're just done? Why? Is this really about Ethan? Chloe, don't tell me you actually fell for him. Was it not just a game? Hey, don't talk to her like that. Chloe is gorgeous and smart. Julian doesn't appreciate her. She's better off without him. Think of all the drama she'll avoid. Yeah, Ethan is way less drama. Chloe, you should just stop pretending and make it official. He seems to really care about you. Chloe knew her friends were just chameleons, saying whatever they thought she wanted to hear. But now that I was gone, their words were like gasoline on a fire, salt in a gaping wound. She was too exhausted to argue. She just picked up the box and went upstairs. She woke up to darkness. The notification light on her phone was blinking. She picked it up and saw a message from her assistant. Ms. Vanderbilt, I've completed the search you requested this morning. There is no record of an Ethan Blackwood on any domestic or international flight, train, or bus manifest in the last 3 days. However, I made some inquiries at Columbia. It seems Mr. Blackwood's department was recently assigned a national, top-secret research project. It appears to be already underway. A classified project? She thought of my mentor, the renowned Professor Davis. Even as an undergraduate, I had been his star pupil. He had always intended to take me under his wing. If I had joined one of his projects, would she ever be able to contact me again? The thought sent her into a fresh wave of panic. She texted her assistant back, telling him to find out more about the project. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. The assistant's reply came quickly. Ms. Vanderbilt, this project has the highest possible security clearance. The only reason I learned anything at all is because the dean's office let something slip out of respect for your grandfather. I strongly advise you not to pursue this any further. It's too dangerous. Her assistant had worked for her grandfather for decades. If he said it was impossible, then it was impossible. The room was dark and silent, the kind of oppressive quiet that feels like it could swallow you whole. Chloe stared into the blackness, her eyes slowly filling with tears as memories washed over her, each one as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. But she knew those days were long gone. Back then, she had only had eyes for another boy, and in her arrogance, she had trampled on the genuine love I offered her. Now, looking back, all she could see was the wreckage she had left behind. The mirage of love she had constructed, 90% fake, 10% real. I had burned it to the ground when I left. The beautiful illusion had vanished into smoke, and the few embers of genuine feeling that remained had fallen on her, scarring her for life. There was nothing she could do but live with the burns. It was graduation season, and the Columbia campus was buzzing with goodbyes. Chloe went back to pick up her diploma and found herself wandering the familiar paths alone. The gardens, the athletic fields, the library. Every corner of campus was filled with groups of graduating students taking photos, with couples holding hands, and with every step, a fresh wave of loneliness washed over her. As one of the most popular girls on campus, plenty of younger students recognized her. Seeing her walking alone, looking so lost, they couldn't help but whisper, "Why is Chloe Vanderbilt by herself? Where's her boyfriend? Did they break up? It's graduation. People break up. Ethan Blackwood is a genius. He was always going to go into a high-level research field. A long-distance relationship would have been tough. But I heard they were planning on getting married right after graduation. I guess things change." Every word was a needle prick, and she couldn't escape them. She lowered her tired, bloodshot eyes, trying to hide the pain, and ducked away from the crowds, heading for a side exit. The crowd thinned out as she'd hoped, but she'd only gone a few steps when she heard a familiar voice. "Jessica, we're over. Can you please just leave me alone?" It was Julian. Jessica had him backed into a corner, and he looked furious. Jessica was the kind of woman who played games with men's hearts. She was beautiful, fun, and always had a line of guys waiting for her attention. Julian had been one of them. She'd only agreed to date him because she thought his family's money would be her ticket to the good life. But she never imagined the Astors would be so ruthless as to completely cut off their only son just to get rid of her. At first, she thought they'd come around, so she stuck with Julian. But as time went on, she realized she wasn't getting anything out of the deal. In fact, his extravagant habits were draining her own bank account. She lost her patience and the fights began. But after every fight, she'd think of all the money she'd already invested in him and decide she had to at least break even. So she'd go back and sweet-talk him. This went on for 3 years. After the incident at the lake, Julian had insisted on breaking up. She thought he'd get over it, but weeks had passed, and he still wouldn't take her back. Jessica finally realized he was serious this time. After 3 years of putting up with him all for nothing, she couldn't let it go. She had to confront him, but he was always surrounded by his family's security, and she could never get close. This was her first chance, and she wasn't about to let him go. "You don't just get to say we're over. Did I agree to this? Julian, I gave you everything. How can you just throw me away? Let go of me, Jessica. You know who my family is. Don't make me do something I'll regret." "Regret? What are you going to do, have me killed? Go ahead and try. Don't forget I have videos, photos. If anything happens to me, they all go public. And you'll go down with me." Her shamelessness was too much for him. He slapped her across the face. "You're disgusting." She didn't even flinch. She just laughed. "I am disgusting. So what? You think you can just walk away from me? I supported your broke ass for 3 years. You're not getting rid of me that easily." Julian's face was red with fury. He was trying to figure out how to get away from her when he saw Chloe standing a short distance away. His eyes lit up as if he'd just seen his savior. "Chloe, over here." He cut himself off. Chloe hadn't even looked at him. She had simply turned and walked away. Her cold dismissal angered him more than Jessica's threats. What was that supposed to mean? Chloe didn't stop, and she didn't explain. She was done cleaning up his messes. He had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. After graduation, Chloe took over the Vanderbilt Corporation, starting with an entry-level position to learn the business from the ground up. Her days were consumed by work, and she often stayed at the office until the early hours of the morning. But no matter how busy she was, she always made time to go back to the little apartment. She had filled it with new things, recreating it exactly as it had been when I lived there. The clothes in the closet, the vase on the table, the brand of soap in the bathroom, everything was just as I had liked it. She was living in a museum of a life that no longer existed, waiting for someone who might never come back. The years flew by, but for her, the days dragged on endlessly. 5 years later, Chloe was named CEO of the Vanderbilt Corporation. After the lavish ceremony, she skipped the celebration party and drove herself back to the little apartment. She stopped on the way to pick up takeout from my favorite barbecue place and a 6-pack of beer. She ran into her old landlord on the street. He sighed when he saw her. "Chloe, it's been 5 years. Ethan has never come back. Why do you keep doing this to yourself?" His words struck a nerve. For her, my departure had frozen her in time. She rarely showed emotion anymore, moving through the world like a machine. As she got older, her family started trying to set her up on dates, worried about her marriage prospects. But she turned everyone down, insisting she needed to focus on her career. Eventually, they gave up and let her be. No one understood her self-imposed isolation. It was only in this small, shabby apartment that she could be herself. The moment she walked through the door, the tension would leave her body, and the exhaustion of her life would begin to fade. Everything in the apartment was exactly as she had left it the day before. Spotless, untouched. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face. She put down her things, took a shower, changed into pajamas, and opened a beer. She hadn't had a drink in years. One sip was enough to make her face flush. The exhaustion from weeks of overtime caught up with her, and before she could finish the bottle, she had fallen asleep on the couch. She woke to the persistent buzzing of her phone. It was dark outside. She rubbed her eyes and finally picked it up. Her screen was flooded with hundreds of messages from dozens of people. She opened a few and saw they had all sent her the same link. It was a news article. Confused, she clicked the link. She was still lying on the couch, but as she scrolled down the page, she shot upright. #Project Nova Robot, developed by Columbia University's Aeronautics Division, successfully lands on Mars via the Ares 7 mission. The project was led by Professor Davis, with key team members including Ethan Blackwood, David Smith. Seeing that familiar name, she felt a wave of dizziness. She read every word of the article, and at the bottom, she saw the team photo. There I was, 26 years old. My hair was shorter, my skin was darker from the sun, but my eyes were bright and determined. I was smiling a calm, gentle smile at the camera. It was only then that Chloe truly understood. I wasn't that naive boy from the tiny apartment anymore, the one whose world revolved around her. I had grown, and now, in front of the entire world, I had spread my wings, and I was soaring. After Project Nova concluded, the entire team returned to New York. Coming back to the city after so long, seeing how much it had changed, felt surreal. After 5 years at a remote research facility in the desert, I'd grown accustomed to the dry heat. The cool autumn air of the city felt foreign. After we landed, a bus from Columbia was waiting to take us back to campus. I chose a window seat in the back. A few minutes later, Professor Davis came over and clapped me on the shoulder. "Ethan, what's next for you now that you're back?" I looked at the man who had changed my life, my heart filled with gratitude. "Professor, these past 5 years have taught me so much, mostly how much I still have to learn. After the debriefings and seminars are done, I'd like to come back to Columbia and continue my studies." I was being modest, but Professor Davis appreciated my desire to keep learning. He gave me a look of genuine approval. "With this project's success, you'll have offers from every research institution in the country. I'm proud that you're choosing to continue your education instead of chasing fame and money. I've watched you grow, and I've always admired your drive and perseverance. But don't forget to live, Ethan. Don't push yourself so hard that you forget about family, friends, love. Those things are important, too." I knew he meant well, but that relationship, which seemed so childish in hindsight, had changed me. For me now, love was no longer the central focus of my life. Through Project Nova, I had glimpsed the vast, mysterious universe. My world had expanded, and so had my ambitions. I wanted to speak to the cosmos. Sounds impossible, but we just landed a robot on Mars. What's truly impossible? I want to be part of that, part of humanity's conversation with the great unknown. After checking into our hotel, I had a quick dinner with my colleagues, and then went back to my room. I was unpacking my toiletries when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages of congratulations were pouring in from my old college roommate, my family, my former professors. I was replying to them one by one when a new friend request popped up on my screen. "Ethan, can we talk?" I only needed a glance at the name and profile picture to know who it was. Chloe. The name didn't stir any old memories. No anger, no sadness. It was as if she were a complete stranger, not the woman I had once loved. I had nothing to say to her, and I had no desire to waste any more of my time on her. I declined the request and headed for the shower. After my shower, I felt completely relaxed. I sank into the soft hotel bed and was asleep in minutes. I had a dream that I was a meteor soaring through the vast, silent galaxy. Above me, the endless universe I longed to explore. Below, the distant blue marble of Earth. There was a profound loneliness in the silence, but there was also a profound freedom. Someone must have leaked our location. When we woke up, the hotel was completely surrounded by reporters and space enthusiasts. We had a press conference at 9 a.m. and a seminar in the afternoon. Our schedule was packed. But looking at the mob outside, we weren't sure we'd even be able to leave the building. Just when it seemed we were going to be late, a team of 100 private security guards appeared out of nowhere and began clearing a path through the crowd. As our bus finally pulled away from the hotel, on track to make our conference on time, everyone on board started buzzing, wondering who had sent the help. I didn't say anything. I had seen the logo on the security team's badges. Vanderbilt Corporation. I just pulled the curtain shut. After 2 long conferences, there was a welcome banquet in the hotel ballroom. I'd been sitting in meetings for 10 hours straight and felt completely stiff. I made a quick round, said my hellos, and decided to head back to my room. I was rubbing my temples as I walked towards the elevators when a faint, familiar perfume made me look up, and there she was, 5 years. She looked more mature, with a cool, professional demeanor that kept the world at arm's length. But the moment she saw me, that composure vanished. A storm of emotions crossed her face: anxiety, hope, regret. She looked as if she had been waiting for a very long time. "It's been a long time, Ethan. How are you?" I glanced at her briefly, then turned my attention to swiping my key card for the elevator. "I'm fine, thank you," I said, my voice calm and even. The reunion she had probably imagined 1,000 times was about to end before it had even begun. She couldn't let it happen. "I didn't come here to bother you. I just wanted to say I'm sore." The elevator doors slid open before she could finish. I had no patience for this. I started to step inside. Seeing me about to leave, she panicked. Feeling her last chance slipping away, she reached out and grabbed my wrist. I stopped and looked back at her, my expression unreadable, but the flicker of annoyance in my eyes was enough. It hit her like a physical blow. All the strength seemed to drain out of her, and her hand fell away from my arm. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft chime. As my face disappeared from view, she felt her heart seize. She leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the floor, her head in her hands. Her lost, broken reflection stared back at her from the polished marble. She sat there motionless like a statue. She didn't know how long she sat there. The sound of footsteps from the dispersing banquet finally roused her from her misery. She pulled herself to her feet, gave the elevators one last, lingering look, and walked out of the hotel. The night air was cold, and she shivered in her thin dress. Her driver, who had been waiting, saw her and quickly opened the car door. "Where to now, Ms. Vanderbilt?" After a long silence, she finally answered. "The office." She needed to lose herself in work, to forget, even for a little while, what had just happened. She worked until 4 in the morning before exhaustion finally claimed her. Too tired to go home, she grabbed a blanket from her closet and fell asleep on her office couch. She'd only been asleep for a couple of hours when her secretary burst into the office, waking her. "Ms. Vanderbilt, we have a problem." The words were like a splash of cold water, shocking her fully awake. She sat up, frowning, and took the tablet her assistant was holding out. She looked at the screen and froze. #Vanderbilt CEO's Late Night Rendezvous with Mystery Man. The headline was accompanied by a photo, a paparazzi shot of us in the elevator lobby last night. Ever since Chloe had taken over the Vanderbilt Corporation, she had been a constant subject of public fascination, partly due to her family's influence, and partly due to her own mystique. She was a bold and decisive leader. Her first act as CEO was to pivot the company from real estate to artificial intelligence. Her vision and drive had earned her a legion of admirers among the younger generation. But her business acumen wasn't the only thing people were interested in. Her beauty and her notoriously private personal life were constant sources of gossip. So when this story broke, the internet went into a frenzy, and it didn't take long for them to identify the mystery man. Chloe opened Twitter and saw the top comments. "I went to Columbia with Chloe." That's her ex-boyfriend, Ethan Blackwood. "He was a legend in the aerospace engineering department." "Holy crap, isn't that the lead designer from the Mars rover project? Do all these power players only date other power players?" She stays out of the gossip columns for years, and then drops this bombshell. "Rocket scientist and billionaire CEO? This is straight out of a romance novel. I ship it. You guys." As she watched the story climb to the top of the trending list, a sense of dread washed over her. Her mind raced, trying to formulate a plan, when her grandfather called. "Chloe, this story that's all over the internet, is it true? Is that brilliant young aerospace engineer really your ex-boyfriend?" After a long pause, she answered softly, "Yes." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. A moment later, her grandfather sounded delighted. Well, what did you two talk about? Is there any chance you might get back together?" "What did we talk about?" The memory of my cold, dismissive words made her heart ache. When she didn't answer, her grandfather seemed to understand. He sighed. "I knew there was a reason you've refused to get married all these years. He seems like a fine young man. If you two could work things out, I would be very happy for you. But you can't force love, Chloe. And he's not an ordinary man. If it's not meant to be, you have to let him go. Don't torture yourself. He's an eagle, not a sparrow you can keep in a cage. No amount of waiting will change that." She knew he was right, but how could she just let go? This wasn't a simple, clean breakup. It was a tangled mess of lies and selfish games. It wasn't something you could just walk away from. Even after 5 years, the smallest memory from that time was enough to keep her awake at night, drowning in guilt. If winning over Julian had been her obsession before, then her new obsession, the one that had consumed her since I left, was finding me, telling me the truth and begging for my forgiveness. And this new obsession was a far crueler master than the last, leaving her in a constant state of hopeless despair. While the Vanderbilt Corporation was still in an emergency PR meeting, I had already responded. During a live television interview about Project Nova that morning, after getting clearance from my superiors, a reporter asked me about the story that had broken the night before. With millions of people watching, I answered calmly, "Thank you for your interest, but the relationship being discussed online ended a long time ago. I was single for the entire duration of Project Nova, and I have no plans to pursue a relationship in the near future. My focus is entirely on my work and my continuing education. I hope you will all continue to follow the exciting discoveries from Project Nova on Mars and the future work of the Columbia Aeronautics program." With a few simple sentences, I had diffused the entire situation. Because the story involved a key member of a national scientific project, everyone in Chloe's office breathed a collective sigh of relief after my interview aired. Everyone except Chloe. She watched the clip of my interview over and over again before finally dismissing the meeting. Outside her window, a thick fog enveloped the city, and she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The morning sun streamed through the glass, but she felt no warmth at all. After everyone else had left, her assistant brought her a cup of coffee and asked quietly, "Ms. Vanderbilt, the story seems to be dying down. Should we still issue a statement?" The room was silent for a long time before Chloe finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "No, just find out which tabloid took the photo and sue them." After 2 weeks of official debriefings and press events, my obligations were fulfilled. I returned to Columbia with my single suitcase and re-enrolled as a graduate student, continuing my studies under Professor Davis. It was a strange transition, going from the Spartan, isolated research facility to the bustling ivory tower of academia. It was especially strange having graduate students who were 5 years younger than me but technically my seniors in the program calling me, "Sir." Professor Davis saw my discomfort and couldn't help but laugh. "You were with me for 5 years, Ethan. By all rights, you should be finishing your doctorate by now. They're not wrong to show you respect. We just need to get the paperwork sorted out. With your experience, you could be teaching their classes. Everyone knows you're my prize pupil. Don't be so modest." At his words, the other students all started good-naturedly calling me Sir and Professor, and the atmosphere in the lab was warm and friendly. After a while, I got used to it and stopped letting it bother me. Because of my unique circumstances, the university provided me with a private apartment on campus to ensure I could work without distractions. Over the Thanksgiving break, I went home to see my parents for the first time in 5 years. We had a wonderful, warm reunion. We talked for hours, and eventually the conversation turned to my love life. I knew they had seen the news stories and were worried about me. I didn't want them to worry, so I decided to be completely honest with them. "Mom, Dad, you know my last relationship didn't end well. Took me a long time to get over it. And in that time, I did a lot of thinking about what I really want in life. A happy family or a meaningful career. I was lost for a long time. But then, one day, I was holding a small component I had just built, and Professor Davis told me that this small, insignificant piece of metal would one day travel to the stars, carrying the hopes and dreams of everyone on our team, of all of humanity. It would see things we could only dream of, and it would be a crucial step forward for the human race. And in that moment, everything became clear. A human life can feel so long, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just the blink of an eye. But it's the accumulation of all those lives, all those people who dedicated themselves to something bigger than themselves, that has allowed humanity to progress. To be able to add my name to that long, incredible story, that, to me, is more thrilling than any romance. Everyone has a purpose in life. You and God gave me a gift, a talent for this kind of work. It's my responsibility to use that gift to its fullest potential, to light the way for others. Don't you think? My parents, who had only finished high school, were silent. They had only wanted me to be happy, not to grow old alone. But after hearing me speak, they understood that my dream was bigger and brighter than their fears for me. They might not fully understand the work I do, but they respected my choice, and they respected my passion. All they wanted was for me to be able to look back on my life, whenever it may end, and feel that it was a life well lived. For them, that was enough. With my parents' blessing, the last of my worries disappeared, and I threw myself completely into my work. On Professor Davis's recommendation, I was invited to join the National Academy of Sciences. The responsibility was immense, but I thrived on it. Everyone around me saw me spending all my time shuttling between the lab and the institute and told me I needed to relax, to not push myself so hard. I told them I was happy, but no one believed me. Professor Davis, in particular, grew frustrated with my workaholic tendencies. One weekend, he practically dragged me out of the lab and forced me to go on a hike with him and some of the other students. The autumn foliage in the mountains was breathtaking, a sea of red and gold under a clear blue sky. The fresh air and beautiful scenery put a smile on everyone's face. I lagged behind the group, taking my time, collecting a few perfectly formed maple leaves to press later. Before I knew it, I had fallen far behind the rest of the group. When I couldn't even see them anymore, I decided not to bother trying to catch up and took a break at a scenic overlook. The point of hiking was to relax, after all, not to race to the top. I took a few photos of the brilliant blue sky and posted one on Facebook. Getting some fresh air. I looked at my very dad-like post and had to laugh at myself. I was definitely getting old. The autumn breeze was so pleasant that I must have dozed off. I woke up to a text from one of the other students with a photo of the incredible view from the summit. "Ethan, where are you? We're about to head back down. Professor Davis says you're in such bad shape that from now on, all group recreational activities are mandatory for you." I smiled at the text, stretched, and was about to type a reply when a shadow fell over me. I looked up, and my smile vanished. What was Chloe doing here? Did I miss blocking someone? I'd have to go through my contacts list again when I got back. Chloe, oblivious to my thoughts, had followed me here for one reason, to finally apologize. So even though she saw the flash of annoyance in my eyes, she pushed past her own disappointment and forced herself to speak. Ethan, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, but I had no interest in her apology. The words, I'm sorry, meant nothing to me. Accepting her apology would imply that I had spent the last 5 years dwelling on the past, but I hadn't. I had moved on completely. I just had no desire to have her in my life. So I said the only thing that needed to be said. I don't need your apology, and I don't want to see you again. Do you understand? That one sentence was more devastating to her than any angry tirade could have been. If her apology was meaningless, then she could never atone for what she had done. The thought was a physical pain, a twisting in her gut. She couldn't control her emotions any longer, and her voice broke. Ethan, I was so stupid. I didn't understand what I had. I was wrong. I never should have used you. I never should have lied to you. Her tearful confession was less interesting to me than a random headline on the internet. I took a sip of water from my backpack and let her talk, my mind a complete blank. I didn't hear a word she said. When she finished and looked at me, lost, I finally spoke, my voice calm. Are you done? I have nothing to say about any of that. It's your business, and it has nothing to do with me. The only thing I have to say is this. When I left, I mailed back every gift you ever gave me. The total value was $53.25, not a penny more. I assume you received the package. Seeing the confused look in her eyes, I waited for her to nod slowly before I continued. So, shouldn't you return the things I gave you, or their cash equivalent? All told, it was probably around $4,000. At 5 years of interest, let's just call it an even $5,000. Have your assistant deliver it to the aeronautics department office at Columbia. They'll know who it's for. My words seemed to make her brain short-circuit. She couldn't figure out what I meant. Was this forgiveness? Was I giving her another chance? Or something else entirely? 1,000 possibilities flashed through her mind, but she knew she couldn't let this moment pass. She answered quickly, 5,000 isn't nearly enough. Ethan, I'll give you anything you ask for. Spoken like the CEO of the Vanderbilt Corporation. So generous. But I wasn't tempted by her offer of more money. I know there's no such thing as a free lunch. I just wanted what was mine. No, thank you. 5,000 is the correct amount. Not a penny more, not a penny less. With that, I walked past her and continued up the trail, not bothering to look at her expression. The rest of the group would be heading down soon, and I couldn't let them know I'd been slacking off. The next day, Chloe delivered the $5,000 in person. I waited until the end of the workday around 5 before I went to the office to pick it up. When I walked in, I saw her still waiting there. I didn't care what she wanted. I just took the envelope and turned to leave. She followed me silently all the way to the lab doors before she finally broke the silence and called my name. Ethan, I have to know why only 5,000. If you had asked for 5 million or 50 million, I would have given it to you as compensation. Compensation? What a word. Hearing it, a genuine, bright smile spread across my face. I turned around and looked at her, really looked at her. The heiress born with a silver spoon, who had never known a day of want in her life, and I couldn't stop myself from speaking my mind. Don't you think that word, compensation, is actually incredibly insulting to me? In our relationship, yes, you lied to me, but every word I ever said, every promise I ever made, was real. I ended things because I finally saw you for who you really are, and I lost all hope for us. My conscience is clear. Why would I need to be compensated for that? The only reason I asked for that $5,000 is because I come from a normal family. I know what it means to work hard for your money. I wasn't going to let my hard work become the equivalent of a bottle of champagne you'd pour out without a second thought. $5,000 may be nothing to you, but to me it represents real effort. I just wanted to ensure that the fruits of my labor had value. This has nothing to do with you or our past. Don't read anything more into it. And one last thing, you and I ended 5 years ago. From this moment on, we are strangers. Please do not show up in my life again. Do not try to contact me. This is the last time we will ever speak. Goodbye. I walked into the lab without a backward glance. Watching my retreating back, Chloe felt the blood freeze in her veins. As the sun set, she felt as if she had been plunged into an endless night from which she would never awaken. I took the envelope of cash straight to one of the undergraduate students in the lab who was organizing a charity drive. A few days later, the money I had once worked 3 jobs to earn would be on its way to a foundation that supported underprivileged kids in Appalachia. It might become hot lunches or new textbooks or science kits for a classroom. Whatever it became, it would be a small force helping to lift those kids up. The thought of some kid growing up strong and healthy, or getting the chance to go to college, or maybe even falling in love with science and one day helping to explore the stars themselves, that made me truly happy. I walked back into the lab, humming to myself, feeling lighter than I had in years. One of the senior PhD candidates, Sarah, nudged my arm. "Ethan, have you heard the rumors? Sounds like there's a new project spinning up. Another long-term deployment back to eating sand in the desert. You thinking about it?" My heart leaped. I couldn't wait another second. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Professor Davis. "Professor, is it true there's a new project? Would you consider me for the team? This one's an 8-year commitment, Ethan. Are you sure?" I had never been more sure of anything in my life. I typed my answer without a moment's hesitation. "I'm sure."